Meanwhile, let's head over to Capitol Hill, where Senate Republicans are huddling behind closed doors to elect the chamber's next majority leader. Two sources with direct knowledge of that situation tell NBC News that Florida Senator Rick Scott is out after the first ballot.
Meanwhile, in the House, there are 8 key races that have yet to be called. Republicans need just 2 more seats to secure a majority. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale joins us now from her post. So, Ali, let's talk about the dynamics at play here. Who is the front runner now that Scott is out?
Much of this news, Vicki, coming into us in real time. So if you see me looking down at my phone, it's because we've got our ever-active Hill team chat about what's happening inside behind closed doors as senators are on their second balloting round, voting by secret ballot, now down from 3 contenders on who will lead them to 2. It is now between John Thune and John Cornyn. And I'm actually being told now that our team has confirmed that it is John Thune who has won the Senate Majority Leader's race. He will now succeed Mitch McConnell, who has led these Republican senators for nearly the last 20 years. McConnell with an 18-year tenure atop this. And it marks a new moment for the Senate Republicans as Trump comes back to town, as they now have Republican control at both sides of Pennsylvania Avenue. And it also marks a real evolution for Thune himself, who has been a Trump detractor at some times over the course of the last several years, but who has worked over the last several months to patch up his relationship with the president-elect. And now they will all, it seems, march in lockstep towards January when Trump assumes the White House once again, and they can begin to enact a Republican agenda.
You know, Ali, all of this is reminding me. Remember 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, when it took House Republicans 15 rounds before they were voting and they elected Speaker Kevin McCarthy. You were there. We were talking. Could we see something like that happen again this time in the Senate?
I think many of us remember the battle wounds from that. And look, the Senate is a very different body than the House. Senators will like to remind you of that quite often. So this is a leadership election that is basically one and done at this point. They know who is going to lead them come January when the official balance of power turns over. On the House side of that building, we will see. You know, at this point, Mike Johnson, the Speaker, just in the last few hours, received the public endorsement of President-elect Donald Trump. That goes a long way on both sides of this building, but especially within the House Republican Conference. But that doesn't mean that it's not potentially still a bumpy road over on the House side of this building. Mike Johnson is going to have to, as Speaker at the end of this Congress, deal with government funding. That has proven to be a thorny issue, not just for Johnson as Speaker, but for Kevin McCarthy before him. A lot of time can elapse in Congress between now and that January 3rd vote that should secure Johnson the speakership. That's where we went 15 rounds last time, and that's what we could be, depending on how things go, in for once we get to that point in the calendar.
Well, luckily in this business, we are built for bumpy roads. Ali Vitale, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
President-elect Trump has been moving quickly to fill key roles in his administration in the week since winning the election.
The president-elect has officially announced Florida Senator Marco Rubio as his pick for Secretary of State, and it comes after the surprising choice of a Fox News host for Defense Secretary. So let's bring in NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns for the latest for us. Dasha, first off, talk to us about the Rubio selection now confirmed. How significant is that?
So this is something we reported on earlier, Zinkley. And look, the Rubio selection is part of a universe with folks like Susie Wiles, who has been his co-campaign manager and will be his chief of staff. That universe of people is giving some relief to career civil servants, to sort of government traditionalists who want people with more typical resumes for these jobs installed in those positions. Rubio is not a staunch isolationist in the way that President-elect Trump is. He's been more of a hawk on China, for example, and more aligned with sort of old school Republican views when it comes to foreign policy. So people see that as sort of a nice balance to President-elect Trump and his slightly different views from old school Republican policy. Now, we'll talk about the other picks, but there's then another set of more controversial choices that are alarming some people in government offices right now, guys.
We have some more breaking news about President-elect Donald Trump's incoming administration.
Moments ago, Mr. Trump announced that he has selected former Democratic Congresswoman and Army National Guard veteran Tulsi Gabbard to be his Director of National Intelligence. Gabbard has become an increasingly prominent figure in conservative politics. The president-elect also just announced moments ago that he has picked Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz as his Attorney General. Gaetz has been a longstanding supporter of the president-elect and has faced controversy over alleged questionable personal conduct. Joining us now is NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin. Julie, let's jump right into the latest news we have here. What do we know about this Attorney General appointment or expected appointment in Matt Gaetz? And in terms of Tulsi Gabbard for DNI, what do we know there?
Well, we know about both of those picks that Senate Republicans are going to be scratching their heads at them, and we'll see. It's going to be a real test to see if they can get confirmed, if they can get 51 votes of the 53 that Senate Republicans currently hold in the upper chamber or will hold in January for Gaetz and Gabbard. I can't tell you what a shock, especially Gaetz is to senators, to lawmakers here on Capitol Hill. He was spotted on Trump's plane this morning with Elon Musk when Trump left the House Republican conference meeting he was at. This is somebody that is currently being investigated by the House Ethics Committee because of some of that personal conduct that you laid out. The federal investigations into those cases were dropped. But even as recently as a month and a half ago, we had an update from the Ethics Committee. Gaetz said he's no longer going to participate in their questioning of him. He called it political retribution, perhaps for pushing out then Speaker Kevin McCarthy. So a long road upward for Gaetz now being named as Trump's Attorney General is really stunning, and we'll see if he gets the votes.
This is from Trump ally Steve Bannon, who just said to me in a brief phone interview, President Trump is going to hit the Justice Department with a blowtorch, and Matt Gaetz is that torch. What do you make of that in the context of the conversations that you're having inside DOJ?
Well, look, obviously, even before this appointment, Kristen, we were doing a lot of reporting about this question of Donald Trump's vow to use the Justice Department to go after his enemies. How would that work? How would the career civil servants inside the Justice Department react? And here's the thing. It's going to be a lot harder than people think it is, even if Matt Gaetz eventually becomes the Attorney General, because there's a thin layer of political appointees over the Justice Department, and then there are a lot of career civil servants who actually make things work. And you can order them to open an investigation, but they have to have predication in order to get a search warrant from a judge, for example, or a subpoena. They can't just do that out of thin air. And even if they did, there's a court system in place. There are checks and balances. There's a jury system. But one dark possibility that people have discussed is it wouldn't be terribly difficult for an attorney general to name a special counsel, which would then handpick their own FBI agents of a like-minded ilk and start investigating people. And even if, it didn't go very far, you'd have to have people spending a lot of money on legal fees. We saw this to a much lesser degree with the John Durham investigation, John Durham, special counsel, spent years investigating the Mueller investigation and the Russia investigation and brought a couple of cases that ended in acquittal and did a lot of investigating that never saw the light of day. But a lot of people, including CIA officers that I know personally, had to spend a lot of money on legal fees and had to sit for long interviews. And it's a very unpleasant thing to be under investigation by the federal government. So there can be some impact here. But again, it's harder than people think to just simply use the Justice Department to prosecute your enemies.
Well, fascinating reporting and reaction, Ken, that you're getting.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.